My name is Carl Morton, and I learned something important at 42 years old. Sometimes being called the villain is the only honest compliment you'll ever get. It started on a Tuesday night in October, the kind of cold that seeps through your jacket and settles in your bones. I was under the hood of my beat-up Ford pickup in the driveway, trying to coax life back into the alternator with nothing but stubbornness and a prayer. The wrench slipped, skinning my knuckles raw, and I was muttering creative combinations of curse words when I heard Allison's voice drifting through the kitchen window. My wife of 18 years was on the phone, and she was laughing. Not the polite chuckle she used at dinner parties or the tired smile she gave me when I told jokes. This was different. This was the laugh she used to save for me, back when we were young and stupid and thought love could conquer anything. "He has no idea," she was saying, her voice pitched low, but not low enough. "Honestly, Travis, sometimes I think Carl's brain runs on the same frequency as that piece of junk truck he's always fixing." I froze, wrench halfway to my bleeding knuckles. Travis Evans, her colleague from the regional office. The guy with the perfect hair and the BMW who'd been showing up at our barbecues and birthday parties for the past 6 months. Always with some excuse about work stuff to discuss with my wife. "The papers are ready," Allison continued. "My lawyer says once he signs, I get the house, half his business, and Maya. He'll be lucky if he can afford a studio apartment above Rick's boxing gym." The wrench clattered to the asphalt. My hands were shaking, and not from the cold. "You should see him out there," she went on, and I could hear the cruel amusement in her voice. 42 years old, covered in grease, trying to fix a truck that's older than our marriage. God, what was I thinking? "He signs tomorrow or he's out on his ass. Watch me work my magic, babe." The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. Maya, our 17-year-old daughter, stormed down the porch steps, her face twisted with teenage fury. She didn't even glance at me as she stalked past, just muttered under her breath, "Mom's new boyfriend is such a creep." I stood there in the driveway, bloody knuckles and all, watching my daughter disappear into the darkness while my wife planned my destruction from the warmth of the kitchen I'd painted last spring. "Guess I missed the memo on Bring Your Lover to Your Marriage Day," I said to the empty street. "But here's the thing about being underestimated your whole life. People forget you're listening. They forget you're thinking. They definitely forget that the quiet guy with the grease under his fingernails might just be smarter than he looks." I wiped my hands on my jeans and walked inside. The next morning arrived with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Allison was already dressed for work, looking every inch the successful HR executive in her tailored suit and perfect makeup. She'd laid the divorce papers out on the kitchen table like a place setting, right next to my coffee mug. "Morning, honey," she said without looking up from her phone. "Sleep well?" I poured coffee and sat down, scanning the documents. My lawyer's training from 20 years ago, back before I gave up law school to help Dad with the construction business, came flooding back. The language was dense, but the intent was crystal clear. Allison wanted everything. "This seems pretty one-sided," I said, keeping my voice casual. She finally looked at me, and I saw something cold and calculating in her eyes that I'd never noticed before. Or maybe I had noticed, and I'd just been too stupid to care. "Carl, let's not make this harder than it has to be. We both know this marriage has been over for years. I'm offering you a clean break. Sign the papers, take your tools and that ridiculous truck, and we can both move on with our lives." "What about Maya?" "Maya's 17. She's old enough to choose where she wants to live, and we both know she'd rather stay in the house she grew up in than move to some cramped apartment with her father." The papers felt heavy in my hands. 18 years of marriage reduced to legal jargon and property divisions. I thought about the mortgage payments I'd made, the late nights I'd spent building the deck, the Saturday mornings I'd spent coaching Maya's soccer team while Allison worked her way up the corporate ladder. I thought about Travis Evans and his perfect hair and his BMW. I thought about my wife's laugh, the one that used to be mine. "You know what, Allison? You're right. This has been a long time coming. I signed every page, my signature bold and decisive. Allison's smile was triumphant as she gathered up the papers. "I'll file these today," she said. "You can start moving your things this weekend. I'll have Maya help you pack." She kissed my forehead like I was a child, grabbed her purse, and headed for the door. "Oh, and Carl? Try not to track any grease on the carpet. I'm showing the house to a potential buyer next week." The door closed behind her with a soft click. I sat there for exactly 30 seconds, then started laughing. Not the bitter laugh of a broken man, but the deep, satisfied chuckle of someone who's just pulled off the con of a lifetime. See, here's what Allison forgot in her rush to destroy me. I might have dropped out of law school, but I never stopped reading contracts. And the papers she'd just had me sign? They weren't the divorce papers her lawyer had drawn up. They were the property transfer documents I'd had prepared 3 weeks ago after I first started suspecting her affair. The ones that legally transferred the house from joint ownership back to my name only, based on the original inheritance clause from my grandmother's will. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. Documents filed. House is officially yours. Good luck. I changed the locks that afternoon. Allison's scream could probably be heard 3 blocks away. I was in the garage organizing my tools and humming an old Johnny Cash song when her BMW screeched into the driveway at 6:47 p.m. She must have broken several speed limits getting home from work. The front door rattled as she tried her key. Then again. Then I heard her heels clicking around to the back door, followed by more rattling and what sounded like some very creative profanity. I walked to the front window and pulled back the curtain. Allison was standing on the porch, her perfect hair slightly mussed, holding her phone to her ear with one hand and pounding on the door with the other. "Carl!" she shouted. "Carl, open this door right now." I opened it, leaning casually against the frame. "Hey, honey." How was work? Her face was flushed, her eyes blazing with fury. "What did you do?" "I'm not sure what you mean." "I signed the papers just like you asked. My lawyer called. He said—" She stopped, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. "You tricked me. I prefer to think of it as reading the fine print. You know, that thing lawyers are supposed to do. Maybe you should get a better one." Behind her, I could see Mrs. Henderson from across the street, pretending to water her already dead flower bed while obviously eavesdropping. 2 houses down, old mister. Garcia was walking his ancient beagle in very slow circles, clearly hoping for a better view of the drama. "This is my house, too," Allison said, her voice rising. "I've lived here for 15 years. Actually, it's not. Legally speaking, it never was. My grandmother left it to me, remember? We just never bothered to update the paperwork until now." I stepped aside and gestured toward the porch, where I'd neatly stacked several boxes and suitcases. "I took the liberty of packing some of your things. Your work clothes, toiletries, that romance novel you've been reading. Oh, and I found this in your purse." I held up a hotel receipt from the Marriott downtown. Room 247, charged to a credit card I didn't recognize. "Looks like you and Travis have been having quite the romantic getaway." How thoughtful of him to pay. Allison's face went white. "You went through my purse? It was sitting right there on the counter. I was just looking for a pen to sign those papers you wanted me to sign so badly." I smiled. Turns out the pen really is mightier than the sword. She lunged for the receipt, but I pulled it back. "I made copies. Several copies. Amazing what modern technology can do, isn't it?" "Carl, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can what? Pretend the last 6 months didn't happen? Pretend I didn't hear you planning my financial destruction while I was bleeding on my own driveway?" Mrs. Henderson had given up all pretense and was now standing at the edge of her yard, openly staring. Mr. Garcia had been joined by his wife, and they were both walking toward us with obvious intent. "You're making a scene," Allison hissed. "Am I? Because I thought you were the one screaming and pounding on doors." A silver BMW pulled into the driveway behind Allison's car. Travis Evans stepped out, looking like he'd just walked off the cover of a men's fashion magazine. His suit probably cost more than I made in a month. "Everything okay here?" he asked, his voice smooth and concerned. "Travis," I said, nodding politely. "Nice to see you. How's the wife?" His perfect composure slipped for just a second. "She's fine, thanks." "Good to hear. Marriage is such a sacred institution, don't you think? Speaking of which, does she know about room 247? Travis glanced at Allison, who was now clutching one of her suitcases like a life preserver. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Oh, I understand perfectly. You're sleeping with my wife wants to divorce me and take everything I own, and now you're both standing on my property, acting surprised that I'm not rolling over and playing dead." By now, we had quite an audience. The Hendersons, the Garcias, the young couple from the corner house, and at least 3 kids on bicycles. This was probably the most exciting thing to happen on Maple Street since the Johnsons' cat got stuck in their chimney. "Carl," Allison said, her voice shaking, "please, let's go inside and talk about this like adults." "Adults?" I laughed. "Allison, adults don't sneak around behind their spouse's back for 6 months. Adults don't plan to financially destroy the person they promised to love and honor. Adults don't mock their husband to their lover while he's bleeding in the driveway." Travis stepped forward, his jaw tight. "Look, Morton, I think you need to calm down." "I am calm. In fact, I'm the calmest I've been in months. For the first time in a long time, everything makes perfect sense." I looked at Allison, really looked at her. The woman I'd married, the mother of my child, the person I'd trusted with everything I had. "You want a divorce? Fine, call your lawyer, but you'll be doing it from somewhere else, because this is my house now. And if you want to fight me for anything else, you'd better bring a better legal team than the one that just handed me everything I needed to bury you both." The next few days passed in a blur of phone calls, legal threats, and increasingly creative attempts at intimidation. Allison had moved in with her sister across town, but she called every few hours to scream at me, threaten me, or try to guilt me into doing the right thing. Travis, meanwhile, had apparently decided that discretion was the better part of valor. His calls to the house stopped after the first day, though I noticed his BMW driving slowly past the house every evening around 6 o'clock. Maya was a different story entirely. My daughter had inherited her mother's talent for manipulation and her grandfather's stubborn streak. She showed up on Thursday evening, letting herself in through the back door with the spare key I'd forgotten to confiscate. "Dad?" she called out. "We need to talk." I found her in the living room, sprawled across the couch like she owned the place. At 17, Maya was beautiful in that effortless way that only teenagers can manage, all long legs and attitude and the absolute certainty that the world revolved around her. "Hey, kiddo, how's your mom doing?" "She's a mess, Dad. She's been crying for 3 days straight. Aunt Jennifer says she might have to take antidepressants." I sat down in my recliner, the one Allison had always hated. "I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Because you seem pretty happy about destroying our family." The accusation hit harder than I'd expected. "Maya, I didn't destroy anything. Your mother made her choices, and now she's dealing with the consequences." "Her choices?" "Dad, she's been miserable for years. We all have been. You work all the time. You never want to go anywhere or do anything fun, and when you are home, you're either fixing something or watching TV. So that justifies cheating?" Maya's face flushed. She wasn't cheating. Travis is just a friend. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken of the hotel receipts, the credit card statements I'd found in Allison's car, the text messages I'd screenshotted from her iPad before she'd thought to change the password. Maya's face went through several expressions as she scrolled through the evidence. Shock, denial, anger, and finally something that looked like resignation. Okay, so maybe she was seeing him. "But Dad, you can't just throw her out. She's your wife. Was. And I didn't throw her out, I just stopped letting her steal from me. This is so unfair. I'm supposed to start senior year next month, and now my parents are getting divorced and everyone at school is going to be talking about it. There it was, the real issue. Not her mother's betrayal or her father's humiliation, but how it might affect Maya's social standing. You can stay here, I said. Your room is exactly the same. Nothing has to change for you. Except Mom won't be here. And neither will Travis. Something in her voice made me look at her more carefully. You like him. He's nice to me. He listens when I talk, and he doesn't lecture me about grades or boys or staying out too late. He treats me like an adult. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. Maya, has Travis ever… God, Dad, no, it's not like that. He's fun. He took me and Mom to that new sushi place downtown last week, and he didn't complain about the prices or say the food was weird. He just wanted us to be happy. The sushi place. The one that cost $60 a person. The one I'd suggested for Allison's birthday, only to be told we couldn't afford it right now. Did your mother tell you she was planning to divorce me? Maya shifted uncomfortably. She said you guys were having problems. Did she tell you she was going to try to take the house, the business, and custody of you? She said she wanted to make sure we'd be okay financially. We? Me and her? I leaned back in the recliner and closed my eyes. 18 years of marriage, 17 years of fatherhood, and this was what I had to show for it. A wife who'd plotted to destroy me, and a daughter who saw me as nothing more than an obstacle to her happiness. Maya, I want you to understand something. I didn't choose this fight. I didn't want our family to fall apart. But I'm not going to let anyone steal from me, even if it's your mother. She stood up, her face hard. Fine. But don't expect me to choose sides. I wouldn't dream of it. After she left, I sat in the empty house and tried to figure out where everything had gone wrong. When had I become the villain in my own life? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Heard about your situation. If you want to get even, call me. G. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. But I didn't forget it. Rick's boxing gym occupied the bottom floor of a converted warehouse on the wrong side of downtown, sandwiched between a pawn shop and a place that sold discount tires. The building was old enough to have character and rundown enough to have cheap rent, which made it perfect for Rick Kowalski's particular brand of no-nonsense fitness. I'd been coming here for 3 years, ever since my doctor told me I needed to lose 30 pounds or risk a heart attack. Rick was 62, built like a fire hydrant, and had the kind of weathered face that suggested he'd seen everything at least twice. Morton, he called out as I walked through the door. Heard you've been having some domestic excitement. Word traveled fast in a town this size. I wrapped my hands and started working the heavy bag, trying to pound out some of the frustration that had been building for days. Allison finally showed her true colors, I said between punches. About time. I never liked that woman. Too polished, you know, like she was always performing for an audience. Rick had a point. Allison had always been image conscious, but somewhere along the way it had become an obsession. The perfect house, the perfect car, the perfect family photos for Facebook. I'd just been too blind to see that I didn't fit into her perfect picture anymore. You want some advice? Rick asked, settling onto a folding chair that creaked under his weight. Do I have a choice? Nope. Here's the thing about fighting, Carl. Doesn't matter if it's in the ring or in real life. The guy who wins isn't necessarily the strongest or the fastest. It's the guy who's willing to do whatever it takes. I stopped hitting the bag. What's that supposed to mean? Means your wife played dirty, so now you get to play dirty too. But you gotta be smart about it. Can't just go in swinging. I'm not looking to destroy her, Rick. I just want her to leave me alone. Rick laughed, a sound like gravel in a cement mixer. Son, she was planning to take your house, your business, and your kid. She wasn't planning to leave you alone. She was planning to leave you with nothing. He had a point. So, what do you suggest? Information. In this town, information is power. And lucky for you, I know where to get it. That evening, Rick introduced me to Gina Martell at a dive bar called Murphy's, the kind of place where the beer was cheap and the lighting was dim enough to hide the stains on the carpet. Gina was Allison's age, maybe a year or two older, with short dark hair and the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. She was also, according to Rick, one of the best lawyers in the county and someone who had her own reasons for disliking my wife. "Carl Morton," she said, extending a hand. "I've heard a lot about you. All bad, I'm sure. Actually, no. Allison talks about you constantly, but never the way you'd expect a wife to talk about her husband." We found a booth in the back corner, away from the handful of other patrons. Gina ordered whiskey neat, which told me everything I needed to know about her approach to life. "Rick says you might be able to help me," I said. "Depends on what kind of help you're looking for. If you want someone to contest the divorce, I can recommend a good family lawyer. If you want someone to help you hide assets, you're talking to the wrong person. What if I want to make sure my wife doesn't get away with fraud?" Gina's eyebrows went up. "What kind of fraud?" I told her about the forged documents, the hotel receipts, the credit cards I'd never seen before. I told her about Travis and the sushi dinners and the way Allison had been systematically preparing to leave me with nothing. "Interesting," Gina said when I finished. "And you have documentation?" "Copies of everything." "Good. Because I have some information that might interest you too." She pulled out her phone and showed me a series of screenshots. Bank statements, credit reports, loan applications. "Your wife has been very busy over the past 6 months. Did you know she took out a second mortgage on the house?" I nearly choked on my beer. "That's impossible. I would have had to sign for that." "Not if she forged your signature," which, based on these documents, she did. The room seemed to tilt slightly. "How much?" $80,000. Deposited into an account you're not on. Jesus Christ, it gets better. She also applied for several credit cards using your social security number and income information. The balances total about $30,000. I stared at the phone screen, trying to process what I was seeing. She was planning to disappear. Looks like it. Take the money, divorce you, and leave you holding the debt. "Why are you showing me this?" Gina's smile was cold. "Because your wife cost me a promotion 5 years ago. She spread rumors about my personal life, questioned my competence in front of our mutual colleagues, and generally made my life hell until I was forced to leave the firm we both worked for. So this is revenge. This is justice. There's a difference." She finished her whiskey and stood up. "I'll be in touch, Carl. And don't worry about my fee. Watching Allison Morton get what she deserves will be payment enough." After she left, I sat in the bar for another hour, nursing my beer and trying to figure out how I'd been so blind for so long. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Mom wants to meet with you tomorrow. Says it's important." I typed back, "Tell her to call her lawyer." But even as I sent the message, I knew this was far from over. Allison ambushed me at the grocery store on Saturday morning. I was in the cereal aisle, trying to decide between generic cornflakes and name brand, when she appeared at the end of the aisle like something out of a horror movie. She looked terrible. Hair unwashed, no makeup, wearing sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt that I recognized as one of mine. "Carl, please. We need to talk." Several other shoppers were pretending not to stare while obviously listening to every word. Mrs. Chen from the pharmacy was particularly obvious about her eavesdropping, lingering over the oatmeal like it contained the secrets of the universe. "I don't think we have anything to discuss," I said, dropping a box of cornflakes into my cart. "I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but we can work this out. We don't have to destroy each other. Funny, that's not what you were saying when you thought you held all the cards." Allison glanced around nervously, clearly aware of our audience. "Can we please go somewhere private?" "This is as private as it gets. You want to talk?" "Talk." She took a shaky breath. I made mistakes. I know that. But Carl, I was lonely. You work 60 hours a week. You never want to do anything. And when you are home, you act like I'm bothering you just by existing. So you decided to steal from me? I never stole anything. I pulled out my phone and showed her the bank statements. Gina had given me $80,000, Allison, forged signature. That's called fraud. Her face went white. How did you? It doesn't matter how I found out. What matters is that you committed multiple felonies while planning to leave me homeless and broke. I was going to pay it back. With what money? The money you were planning to get from selling my house? Mrs. Chen had given up all pretense and was now openly staring at us. 2 other shoppers had appeared at the far end of the aisle, clearly hoping to catch more of the drama. Carl, please. I'll give it all back. We can go to counseling. We can start over. Start over? Allison, you spent 6 months planning to destroy my life. You turned my own daughter against me. You humiliated me in front of the entire town. And now that your plan backfired, you want to start over. She was crying now. Big ugly sobs that made her whole body shake. I love you. I know I screwed up, but I love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of not having to face the consequences of your actions. Travis appeared at the end of the aisle, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. He was back to his usual perfect appearance, but there was something nervous in his eyes that suggested his world wasn't as stable as his hair gel. Allison, he said carefully, maybe we should go. Travis, I said, nodding politely. How's business? Fine, he said, but his voice cracked slightly on the word. Really? Because I heard you lost the Henderson account, and the Morrison deal fell through. Something about questions regarding your professional ethics? His face flushed red. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about the fact that word travels fast in a small town. People talk. They share information. They make judgments about character. I looked at Allison, then back at Travis. They especially talk when they find out someone's been sleeping with a married woman while helping her commit fraud against her husband. That's not, Travis started. Not what? Not true? Because I have hotel receipts that say otherwise, credit card statements, text messages. Should I keep going? Allison grabbed Travis's arm. Let's just go. Good idea, I said. Oh, and Allison? You might want to call your lawyer. I think you're going to need a good one. As they hurried away, I could hear the whispers starting behind me. By evening, the whole town would know the details of Allison Morton's affair and her attempt to defraud her husband. I finished my shopping in peace. The confrontation I'd been dreading came 2 weeks later, at Maya's school orientation night. I'd almost skipped it. The last thing I wanted was to face a room full of parents who'd heard every detail of my marital drama through the town's gossip network. But Maya was starting her senior year, and despite everything that had happened, I wasn't going to miss something important to her. I should have stayed home. Allison was there, of course, sitting in the 3rd row with Travis beside her like they were a real couple. She'd pulled herself together since our grocery store encounter. Hair done, makeup perfect, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly truck payment. Maya was with them. My own daughter sitting between my cheating wife and her boyfriend, acting like this was perfectly normal. I found a seat in the back and tried to focus on the principal's presentation about graduation requirements and college preparation. But I could feel eyes on me, could hear the whispered conversations that stopped when I looked around. After the formal presentation, parents scattered to visit individual classrooms and meet with teachers. I was heading toward Maya's AP English class when I ran into Jennifer Walsh and Susan Martinez, 2 women who'd been part of our social circle for years. Carl, Jennifer said, her voice bright with false enthusiasm. How are you holding up? I'm fine, thanks. We heard about the divorce, Susan added, her eyes gleaming with the kind of excitement people get when discussing other people's misery. It must be so difficult. It's been an adjustment. Well, we just want you to know that we think Allison's behavior has been completely inappropriate, Jennifer said, lowering her voice conspiratorially. The whole town is talking about it. I appreciate the support. Of course, we can understand why she might have been unhappy, Susan added. Marriage is hard work and sometimes people grow apart. There it was. The subtle shift from support to judgment. I could see it in their eyes, the calculation, the way they were already deciding which side of the divorce to support. What Susan means, Jennifer said quickly, is that we're sure there were problems on both sides. Were there? I asked. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like the problems were pretty one-sided. Well, yes, but what? But I deserve to be cheated on? But I deserve to have my wife try to steal everything I own? Other parents were starting to notice our conversation. I could see them edging closer, pretending to read bulletin boards while obviously listening. Carl, we didn't mean, Jennifer started. You meant exactly what you said. You think this is my fault. You think I drove my wife into another man's arms because I work too much or don't take her on enough vacations or whatever other bullshit excuse you've come up with. There's no need to use that language, Susan said stiffly. Isn't there? Because I think there's every need. I think it's time people in this town heard the truth instead of whatever sanitized version Allison's been spreading around. A crowd was gathering now. I could see Allison across the hallway, her face pale as she realized what was happening. The truth, I said, raising my voice slightly, is that my wife spent 6 months planning to destroy me. She forged my signature on loan documents. She opened credit cards in my name. She was planning to take my house, my business, and my daughter while leaving me with nothing but debt. Carl, Jennifer tried to interrupt. The truth is that she's been sleeping with Travis Evans for months while lying to my face every single day. The truth is that she turned my own daughter against me and tried to make me look like the villain for not rolling over and letting her steal everything I've worked for. The hallway had gone completely quiet. Even the teenagers had stopped talking to stare at the crazy divorced dad having a meltdown at orientation night. And the truth, I continued, looking directly at Jennifer and Susan, is that people like you are so desperate for gossip that you'll pretend to be supportive while secretly blaming the victim for not being a good enough husband to prevent his own betrayal. I could see Maya pushing through the crowd, her face flushed with embarrassment and anger. Dad, stop, she hissed when she reached me. You're making a scene. Am I? Or am I just telling the truth for once? You're embarrassing me. I'm embarrassing you? Maya, your mother committed fraud. She's been lying to everyone in this town, including you, for months. But I'm the embarrassment. Allison appeared beside Maya, her face a mask of controlled fury. Carl, that's enough. Is it? Because I don't think it is. I think it's time everyone knew exactly what kind of person you really are. You're drunk, she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. I'm stone sober. But even if I wasn't, it wouldn't make anything I've said less true. Travis materialized behind Allison, his perfect composure finally cracking. Look, Morton, maybe you should just go home and sleep it off. Sleep what off? The fact that you've been screwing my wife? The fact that you helped her try to steal from me? Or the fact that everyone in this town thinks I'm the bad guy for not letting you get away with it? Dad, please, Maya said, tears streaming down her face. Just stop. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. Someone who'd chosen sides without knowing all the facts. Someone who was more concerned about her social status than her father's dignity. You know what, Maya? You're right. I should stop. I should go home and pretend none of this happened. I should let your mother and her boyfriend rewrite history and make me the villain in their love story. I looked around at the crowd of parents and teachers, all staring at me like I was some kind of dangerous animal. But I'm not going to do that. Because the truth matters, even when it's ugly, even when it makes people uncomfortable, even when it ruins the perfect little narrative everyone wants to believe. I turned and walked away, leaving behind the whispers and the stares and the family that had never really been mine to begin with. 3 days after the school incident, Gina called with news that changed everything. "We've got her," she said without preamble. "The bank records, the forged signatures, the credit card fraud, it's all documented." But that's not the best part. I was in my garage, trying to lose myself in the familiar routine of organizing tools and cleaning parts. What's the best part? Travis Evans is broke. Turns out his real estate business has been failing for months. He's been using company funds to pay for his lifestyle, including those hotel rooms with your wife. So he's been stealing too? Embezzling, and Allison knew about it. I have email records showing she helped him move money between accounts to hide the theft from his business partners. I sat down heavily on my workbench. Jesus. It gets better. Remember that second mortgage she took out on your house? The money didn't go into a personal account. It went into Travis's business account, which means she was using your house as collateral to help her boyfriend cover up his embezzlement. Can we prove all this? Already have. I've been working with a forensic accountant for the past week. We have everything we need to send them both to prison. Prison. The word hung in the air like smoke. Gina, I don't want to send anyone to prison. I just want them out of my life. Carl, they committed serious crimes, multiple felonies. If you don't press charges, they'll just do it to someone else. She had a point, but the thought of my daughter visiting her mother in prison made me sick. There's something else, Gina continued. Maya's been in contact with me. What? She called yesterday. Apparently, she's been doing some digging of her own since the school incident. She found some things on her mother's computer that she thought I should see. What kind of things? Text messages, emails, plans for what? Plans to disappear. Allison and Travis were going to take the money and run. They had plane tickets to Costa Rica, Carl. One-way tickets. They were planning to leave the country and leave you holding the bag for all their debts. The garage suddenly felt very cold. When? Next week. Maya found the tickets hidden in her mother's bedroom. I closed my eyes and tried to process what I was hearing. My wife hadn't just been planning to divorce me. She'd been planning to destroy me and then flee the country with her boyfriend, leaving me with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and no way to prove I hadn't incurred it myself. Where's Maya now? Safe. She's been staying with your sister since she found the tickets. She's scared, Carl. She finally understands what kind of person her mother really is. My sister lived 2 hours away. Maya had driven there alone, at 17, because she was afraid of her own mother. What do you need me to do? Meet me at the police station in an hour. It's time to end this. The arrest happened at Murphy's Bar, the same place where Gina had first shown me the evidence of Allison's crimes. I wasn't there to see it, but Rick was, and he gave me a play-by-play later that evening. Your wife and her boyfriend were having what looked like a celebration dinner, he said, settling into my kitchen chair with a beer. Probably thought they were home free. How many cops? 4, 2 uniforms, 2 detectives. Very professional, very public. Half the town was there to see it. I tried to imagine the scene. Allison in handcuffs, being read her rights while the entire bar watched. Part of me felt sick about it. Part of me felt vindicated. What about Travis? Cried like a baby. Kept saying it was all a misunderstanding, that he could explain everything. Your wife, though, she went down fighting. Blamed you, blamed Travis, blamed everyone but herself. And Maya? Safe at your sister's place. Gina says she's been very helpful with the investigation. My daughter, 17 years old, helping to build a criminal case against her own mother. The thought should have broken my heart, but mostly I just felt tired. Rick, did I do the right thing? The old boxer studied me for a long moment. Carl, your wife was planning to destroy your life and flee the country. Your daughter would have come home from school one day to find her mother gone and you bankrupt. You think you had a choice? He was right, but that didn't make it easier. What happens now? Now? Now you rebuild. You've got your house, your business, and your dignity. That's more than most men get after something like this. The next morning, I drove to my sister's house to see Maya. She was sitting on the porch when I arrived, looking younger than her 17 years. When she saw me, she started crying. "Dad, I'm so sorry." "I didn't know. I thought you were just being mean to Mom. But she was really going to leave me. She was going to take all that money and leave me with nothing." I sat down beside her and put my arm around her shoulders. "It's not your fault, kiddo. None of this is your fault. But I said all those horrible things to you. I chose her side without knowing what she was really doing. You were protecting your mother. That's what daughters are supposed to do. Even when their mothers are criminals." The words sounded strange in her voice. "Criminal. My wife was a criminal. Maya, your mother made some very bad choices. But that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. How can you say that? After everything she did to you?" I thought about it for a moment. Because being a bad wife doesn't automatically make someone a bad mother. And because you're going to have to find a way to forgive her eventually, or the anger will eat you alive. Are you going to forgive her? Someday. Maybe. But not today. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I sat in the courtroom every day, watching my wife of 18 years and her lover face the consequences of their actions. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, forged documents, email chains, recorded phone calls. Gina and her team had built an airtight case. Allison's lawyer tried to paint her as a victim of an abusive marriage, a desperate woman driven to desperate measures by an uncaring husband. But the prosecution had too much evidence, and the jury wasn't buying it. Travis broke first, accepting a plea deal in exchange for his testimony against Allison. He got 3 years in minimum security and full restitution. Watching him on the witness stand, describing their affair and their plans to flee the country, I felt nothing but contempt. Allison held out until the end, maintaining her innocence and blaming everyone else for her situation. The jury deliberated for 6 hours before finding her guilty on all counts: fraud, forgery, embezzlement, and conspiracy. She got 5 years in state prison. I was standing outside the courthouse when they led her away in handcuffs. She looked at me through the window of the transport van, her face a mask of hatred and defeat. I felt nothing. Maya chose to live with me. She was accepted to State University on a partial scholarship, and I was proud of her for rebuilding her life after everything that had happened. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted from its foundation. I repainted the kitchen, bought new furniture, and started hosting poker games for Rick and some of the other guys from the gym. 6 months after the trial, I ran into Jennifer Walsh at the grocery store. The same woman who'd suggested I was partly to blame for my wife's betrayal. "Carl?" she said, her voice bright with false enthusiasm. "How are you doing?" "I'm doing well, thanks." "We heard Maya got into State University." "That's wonderful. She earned it. And the house looks beautiful. I drove by last week and saw you'd repainted the shutters. Keeping busy." She shifted uncomfortably, clearly wanting to say something but not sure how to approach it. "Carl, I want you to know that I never believed all those rumors about you being a difficult husband. I always knew Allison was the problem." I looked at her for a long moment, remembering the night at the school when she'd suggested I was partly to blame for driving my wife into another man's arms. "Did you?" Because I remember a different conversation. Her face flushed. "Well, I mean, we didn't know all the facts then. But looking back, it's obvious that you were the victim in all this." "Obvious now, maybe. But not when it mattered." I pushed my cart past her without another word. That evening, I was sitting on my back deck, watching the sunset and drinking a beer, when my phone rang. It was Gina. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Free?" "Good. That's exactly how you should feel. Gina, I never thanked you properly for everything you did. You don't need to thank me." Watching Allison get what she deserved was payment enough. Still, I owe you dinner at least. I'll take you up on that. But Carl, what you did took courage. A lot of men would have just rolled over and let her get away with it. I'm not a lot of men. No, you're not. You're one of the good ones. After she hung up, I sat on the deck until the stars came out, thinking about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the lies, the public humiliation, the trial, the victory. They'd called me the villain for fighting back, for refusing to be destroyed quietly. The town gossips, the fair-weather friends, even my own daughter at first. They'd all expected me to take my punishment like a good little victim and disappear. Instead, I'd fought back. I'd exposed the truth, faced the consequences, and won. Maya came out to join me, carrying 2 beers and a bowl of popcorn. "Penny for your thoughts," she said, settling into the chair beside me. "Just thinking about how things turned out. Any regrets?" I considered the question seriously. Did I regret the public confrontations? The trial? The fact that my daughter's mother was in prison? "No," I said finally. "No regrets." "Even about Mom?" "Your mother made her choices, Maya. I just made sure she faced the consequences." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars and listening to the crickets. "Dad?" Maya said eventually. "Yeah? I'm proud of you. For fighting back. For not letting them destroy you." "Thanks, kiddo." "And Dad?" "Yeah? I'm sorry it took me so long to figure out who the real villain was in this story." I smiled in the darkness. "That's okay. Sometimes the good guys don't look like heroes at first glance. But they are? Sometimes. When it matters." The next morning, I woke up in my own house, in my own bed, surrounded by my own things. I made coffee in my kitchen, read the paper at my table, and planned my day according to my own schedule. For the first time in years, my life belonged to me. They'd called me the villain for refusing to be destroyed. They'd expected me to disappear quietly, to accept my punishment with grace and dignity. Instead, I'd fought back with everything I had. I'd used their own weapons against them, the law, the truth, the very system they'd tried to manipulate. And I'd won. Standing in my kitchen, drinking my coffee and watching the sunrise through clean windows, I realized something important. Sometimes being called the villain is the highest compliment you can receive. It means you refused to be a victim. It means you fought back. It means you won. And in the end, that's all that really matters.